We just ate lunch, and everyone is feeling a little tired, lethargic, so we're going to do a quick exercise just to wake people up. This is the most exciting session of the afternoon, or of the day, actually, so really want everyone to be, up and alert and to pay attention. So the exercise we're going to do really quickly is we're going to send a wave around the room. So I would say, unite. And then I want the waves to go from that side of the room to this side and back. And what the wave means is your hands go up. So I say unite, the hands go up from that side of the room and go all the way to this side and back. So everybody has to be paying attention so that you can, you're not the only one that's not putting your hand up. You're not breaking the wave. So we're going to do that for unite. We're going to do that for innovate. And we're going to do that for disrupt. And then we'll kick off the session. So are you guys ready? Great. So, unite. And back. Supposed to go back. Great. Okay, so we're going to do that for innovate and disrupt. Because we're trying to wake everybody up. So, innovate. Let's go. Send it back, send it back. And disrupt. Awesome, thank you guys. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the 18th Africa Business Conference. This year, the universe has been gracious and kind to us and actually gave us sunshine today. So we're happy about that because last year we had heaps and heaps of snow outside. So I've heard a couple of you guys complaining that, it's so cold. But guess what? It's actually warm right now in Boston. So we're thankful to the universe for that. Thank you to all our sponsors. This conference was made successful by all of you, by either your financial contribution or your in-kind contribution, so thank you. Special thanks goes to BCG, our platinum sponsors. Thank you for investing in us and in our conference. We're grateful. Also, a big thank you to you all, the audience, for joining us this afternoon as we delve deeper into the conversation to unite, innovate, and disrupt in Africa. Yesterday, we kicked off the conference by learning about the various forms of innovation from one of the world's top experts on innovation and growth, Clayton Christensen. He shared with us why it is important for us to find our own unique path to achieving disruptive innovation in Africa and why the time is now. This morning, Makta Diop explored the meaning of innovation in the Africa context and how growth and prosperity in our beloved continent hinges on not just governments, the public sector, but also on private businesses, SMEs, and on individuals like us. He highlighted some of the challenges that we face in Africa. But with every challenge, guess what? There's a big opportunity. He highlighted how human capital is one of our biggest assets. So we need to develop our human capital in Africa so more can join us in working towards the common goal of uplifting our continent. This afternoon, we will hear from 3 leaders from different sectors and regions in Africa in a new keynote format titled MyTakes. This year's MyTakes theme is The Innovator Within, and the MyTakes speakers will share how they are leading, innovating, and making a difference in their day-to-day lives and in their lives and in their businesses. The title of the session, MyTakes, is inspired by what has now become an HBS tradition on campus, where students share their stories with fellow section mates and with the broader HBS community in what is known as giving a MyTake. So this year, our MyTake keynote speakers are Khanyi Dhlomo, Ashish Theka, and Charles Ifedi. Each speaker will speak for 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions for about 5 minutes. As you listen to each of our MyTakes keynote speakers, we challenge you to think about what you, as an individual, can do to contribute to Africa's growth and prosperity. Every one of us has a role to play in making our continent successful, and we need to look inwards after this conference and during the conference and figure out what that role is and put in the time and the effort in making an impact and making Africa successful. With that, I would like to introduce you to our first MyTakes speaker, Khanyi Dhlomo. So Khanyi Dhlomo is the managing director of Dhlomo Media, which she founded in 2007. She is also the founder of Destiny Connect and the founding editor of Destiny Magazine. Before starting her own media company, Khanyi was editor of True Love Magazine for 8 years. In 2013, Khanyi ventured into retail and launched Luminance, which is a department store in Africa. She is an HBS alum, and she was named most influential in South African media by the Media Magazine in 2003 and made the 2011 Forbes list of 20 young power women in Africa. So join me in welcoming Khanyi Dhlomo to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for that warm welcome here today. It really is wonderful to be here. Thank you to the Africa Business Conference co-chairs and everyone involved. I know it's usually quite a big team effort from my days here at HBS about 9 years ago. Thank you for inviting me here. I've actually been invited here a few times. I graduated in 2007, so it's about 9 years ago that I completed my MBA, and I've been invited about 4 or 5 times, and somehow the timing hasn't always worked out. But I'm really happy, and I think that the universe works in an interesting way, because this year's topic, out of all the topics that I've been exposed to, really resonates with me more than any other. The idea of uniting, innovating, disrupting, and adopting homegrown models for Africa's prosperity. I'm even more interested to hear what Ashish and Tals have to say, and that's why I lobbied to speak first, just so that I could enjoy their talks, because I think they've both done such amazing and inspiring work on the continent that I am really looking forward to hear about. So I won't speak too long. I'd actually prefer more of a Q&A and to hear your questions rather than share too much of my story. So my talk is likely to be less than 15 minutes. But really, there are 3 themes that I think are present in what I'll be talking to you about around my takes on innovating and leading in Africa to make a difference. The first is political change, and I think as Africans we've seen our fair share of that in all its forms across the various countries in our continent. And it often presents challenges, but I think it presents amazing opportunities. So I'll really just touch on how that was important for me in my journey. The second is looking at global trends and adopting and then adapting those to suit what the local markets need and to empower people locally to fulfill their destinies in a powerful way. And then finally, I'd like to talk about how continuous innovation, continuous purpose-driven innovation around profitable opportunities, but also around opportunities that make a difference and that move the continent forward, how that aspect has played out in my life and continues to play out. Okay, so just briefly on my journey before I take you through just some examples of innovation in my business, Dhlomo Media. I started off really loving media, I think from a very young age. As a young girl, I used to create my own scrapbooks, cut out magazines and create my own scrapbooks and stick them on and kind of have my own mini toy media company, so to speak, as a very young girl. So I really wasn't surprised that I ended up where I have. I think the journey may have been a bit unexpected, but it really wasn't surprising. And the heart and core of my media experience took place at Naspers in Media 24, which is one of their subsidiaries. I'm sure many of you know Naspers is one of Africa's largest media companies and certainly one of the world's largest investors in emerging markets, in China, in Europe, and of course the continent. When I was there, I realized that one of the things I wanted to do was to gain international experience before venturing out on my own to work in other parts of the world. And the opportunity came up for me to head up South African tourism in Paris. So I spent some time living there and promoting South Africa as a business and leisure destination. And there, I then applied to study at Harvard Business School. I actually applied at various places, at Harvard, at Columbia, at INSEAD. Harvard was the first choice for me, and when they responded first, I didn't even wait to hear what the others had to say. I just took that offer and made my way here. And while I was here, the idea of Dhlomo Media came about. And it really came about from looking at my colleagues or fellow students then, who were MBA students and others in the Kennedy School, particularly the women, and just observing how they consumed media. And on the one hand, they would read The Economist, they would read Forbes, they would read the Wall Street Journal, and on the other hand, also read Harper's Bazaar, Vogue magazine, Glamour. And it occurred to me that there really wasn't a media brand on the continent. I thought just on the continent, but in fact, upon further research, I realized in the world at the time that combined these areas of interest into a single brand. The sophisticated business and entrepreneurial content with the fashion, beauty, and lifestyle content. And that's really what Destiny magazine was and still is, and much of the way in which we produce content at Dhlomo Media. And so that's how the idea came about while I was here at Harvard Business School. But if I just go back to the time that I was at Naspers, heading up their magazine, True Love, and its name is quite misleading. There was actually very little about love in the magazine. I'm not quite sure how the name came about, but that's what I inherited. And at the time that I became editor, which was 1995, it was a year after the release of Madiba and from prison, and South Africa was in a state of euphoria. It was very much the honeymoon period. People were expecting all sorts of amazing things from our new political dispensation. And there were genuinely many new opportunities, because before this, black South Africans couldn't live where they wanted. They couldn't have, jobs that they wanted to have. They couldn't pursue many passions and interests that they had. And now, all of a sudden, these opportunities were open and available to them. And it occurred to me and the team that there really wasn't anything, any media brand, any tools that had content, information that would inspire, that would inform, that would affirm, and that would assist this group of people to take advantage of these opportunities in an optimal way that helps them to move forward and progress in the new South Africa. And that's what informed my strategy with True Love magazine at the time, was to position it as a reference point and a tool for young women to get all the information they need in terms of their new lifestyles, their new careers, and opportunities in their lives. And over time, it became the most widely read women's magazine in the country, and it really resonated with the audience. And that was the first learning for me about how it's so important, particularly in a continent like Africa and in a country like South Africa at the time, to look at the political environment and to see what opportunities it offers and how one can create products that not only take advantage of that from a business point of view, but I think more importantly, empower and equip people to prosper and to blossom in that environment. And so over time, Dhlomo Media has become a company that connects a high-quality audience of men and women. The size is about 1.8 million. It's an engaged audience. It's a curious, affluent one by African standards, and spread out across 11 African countries. And changes globally in media, which have seen print become a less dominant media platform and digital and other ways of delivering content more prominent, have influenced our decision to become a company that offers a 360 offering both for consumers and for advertisers, where we don't just offer print but digital, we offer events and experiences, and we also offer content marketing, where we use our skill of producing unique, compelling and useful content for other clients, amongst them our national airline and various financial services groups. But the underlying motivator and the underlying driver is always thinking about how do we take that trend and translate it into the local environment and create content that helps Africans and South Africans deal with the challenges that face them successfully. And if we hone in on Destiny, for example, we have several events that are focused on entrepreneurship, that are focused on careers, on personal development, and also on personal finance. In addition to that, we take out various reports from the magazine on the areas of content that are particularly important, like personal wealth. We highlight young achievers under the age of 40, and then have a very strong digital presence that has roughly about 1 million page impressions every month, covering both the male and the female market. I'd just like to spend a bit of time here just talking, I think, a bit about the female market in South Africa. It's one, I think, that's ripe for many opportunities for innovation. About 49% of the population is female, and I think on the continent that's about 51%. But there really is a palatable rise in women in leadership, in entrepreneurial positions, and in politics, certainly in South Africa and across the continent. And yes, there remain many challenges. There are many areas in which the continent still needs to improve in terms of how it empowers women. But I think there's just tremendous opportunity here. If you look at the number of senior managers in South Africa, for example, the average is about 28% compared to a global average of about 24%. And for us as a media company, that is, shows a need for content and tools and services that are aimed at this market. And I think that as an entrepreneur, there is so much that can be done that makes a difference and also creates opportunities for profit aimed at this emerging and rising female market. Two areas in which we are developing further platforms or digital platforms are in education and mentorship. The 5 focus areas of content for Dhlomo Media are entrepreneurship, education, career and personal development, personal finance, and grooming for success. But particularly education and mentorship are where we developing new platforms or new brands that we'll launch during this year. The Good Schools Report will be a Pan-African platform that looks at education across the continent and also evaluates and ranks schools, both private and public, across the continent. And that's something that we'll be launching in the next few months. And then Mentor Feed is a mentorship and skill building platform that we'll be launching also within 2016 that's designed to take advantage of the hunger and need for entrepreneurship content and also to close the skills gap within the continent. There's a huge opportunity for any entrepreneur, I think, on the continent to look at skills. If you look at some of the studies that have been done, there's about a 54% mismatch between the skills of job seekers and employers' requirements on the continent. If you look at the youth of, I think, about 36 African countries. So what we would like to do with Mentor Feed is fast-track skills development, provide short courses that enable people to meet the requirements of employers more successfully. There's also a huge demand for mentorship, and I know that Ashish has Mara Mentor, which is doing extremely well in pairing up particularly entrepreneurs with mentors across the continent. But what we found is that there's also a need for mentorship just around general lifestyle, around careers. And it's many things that we take for granted, sitting here in Ivy League institutions or, in first world economies. But there's just such a demand for this information on the continent and an amazing opportunity to do good while doing business. And then, of course, the delivery of this content will be predominantly mobile because of the tremendous growth in mobile on the continent. So those are really just some of the ideas and some of the highlights of my journey of innovation. But I'd really like to challenge all of you to come back to Africa. I don't know how many of you are planning to do so. I know that was always a big question amongst my colleagues from the continent when I was studying here. Africa needs you. And I think there is so much that we can all do together if we unite and move the continent forward. And just to end off with the Oscars tomorrow night, I'm a big movie fan. I thought I'd leave you with a quote from The Revenant, the screenplay The Revenant. Who's rooting for Leonardo to win an Oscar? Like, finally. Yay! I'm certainly rooting for him too. It looks like it's his year, finally. But the one quote that stands out for me from the movie is from Grace Dove, his wife in the movie, who says that when there is a storm and you stand in front of a tree, if you look at its branches, you swear it will fall. But if you watch the trunk, you will see its stability. And of course, a revenant is a person who's returned from the dead. And I think if we were to think of the continent as individuals or people, for me, Africa would be that revenant. We've not had it easy. We've weathered many storms. We continue to weather many storms, and there will be many storms to come. But our trunk is strong, and our trunk being the people of Africa. That's us. We are strong. And I think that we have such an amazing capacity of transcending tragedy and reinventing ourselves. And it really is up to us. It's not just up to the governments. It really is up to us as individuals. And if we unite and we consistently choose to innovate for Africa's progress and prosperity, I think we'll see ourselves rise above our challenges, and we'll certainly show the world what it means to innovate and lead with purpose. That's my take. Thank you. So I believe we have some time for some questions. You can proceed to the microphones in front here. I think there are two of them if you have questions.
Hi, Khanyi.
Hi.
My name is Farai. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I'm based in South Africa. And I read your magazine every month. It's a wonderful magazine.
Thank you.
My question to you is, you started working as an editor in 1995. Mm-hmm. How have you managed to stay relevant? 95, we're talking... That's a long time ago.
Well, I think that... Oh, boy. I'm just going to go down and get my walking stick here.
Okay. No, you still look 16, don't worry. Yeah, how have you... Okay. How have you managed to stay relevant and also managed to stay out of scandal and managed to cultivate Excuse me, can I finish? My Okay, I think if you're from South Africa, you'd understand where I'm coming from. Khanyi is one of the people that many, if not all, the young ladies in South Africa look up to as a role model. That's the point of my question. Thank you.
Can you hear me? You can hear me now? So I'll start with the relevance question. I'll pretend I didn't hear that 1995 is a long time. And I think the most important thing is to keep your eyes open, and to not just look but actually see what is happening out there. And that involves, reading widely, watching what is happening globally. We do follow global trends. Sometimes we leapfrog them, as we have in mobile technology, but it's really about watching what's happening out there, spending time globally, and traveling, studying abroad. All those things have really helped me. And I think as a media person, also being on social media, I'm fairly new to social media. I think I've only been on Twitter for about 5 months and Instagram for 3 weeks or something. But, just watching what people are saying and what's important, what are the conversation starters, all those things are so important. So, and it's not always easy as an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship is tough. And it stays tough for many, many years. As long as you're constantly building and starting something new, it consumes you, and it makes it extremely difficult to stay in touch, to make the time to read, to make the time to observe what's happening. But it's just imperative that you do that, and it's just about making the time and forcing yourself. About the scandal, I don't know. I went to a convent school. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But it's interesting. I don't strive to necessarily stay out of controversial situations. I think ultimately, as long as you're true and you're happy with where you stand in any situation, the most important thing, whether you go through something good or bad, I think, is to just learn from it. Take the lessons that come from that and make sure that it makes you a better version of yourself.
Hi, Khanyi. Thank you for that speech. My name is A.K. Urum from Nigeria. And my question, it's 2 questions, but it's really the same. Yeah. So the question is, one advantage of working in the media is that it gives you that pulse on the things that people care about. And so you've been doing this for a while, and you've grown an audience that is pretty sizable. So the question is, what has that told you, interacting with your audience and learning the things that they're interested in? What has that told you about the changes that is happening within the continent, as far as culturally and, the education, the financial aspects of it? What are the changes that you've noticed over time? And then the second thing is, when you target the 1.6 million who are affluent, so they have influence, they have the ability to make decisions in some cases. Is there a political component to the work you do in the media? Because one of the biggest influences the media has is to shape political opinion and to shape the direction of conversation. So is there a component of what you do that addresses that? Thank you.
I think the biggest change for me over the past, I'd say, 20 years is seeing how the responsibility for progress is shifting from government to the individual. I think more and more Africans are seeing that if we want to move the continent forward, if we want to move our lives forward, we really have to take it up upon ourselves. And I think that's why the pillars of content like entrepreneurship, like career advancement, like personal wealth and personal finance, how to look after your finances, even the movement of money on the continent and, the success of the businesses around that, whether it's M-Pesa, whether it's the work that Charles is doing. I think all those things are just examples of people latching onto the tools and mechanisms they need to move themselves forward, to move forward in your career, to move forward in your business as an entrepreneur, to move forward in your financial independence. And also to build your skills. So businesses around education, financial services, entrepreneurship, naturally will do well and naturally will thrive because there's a demand both from an information perspective, which is good for media, and both from a services perspective. Then, in terms of your question on politics, we on the digital side don't just do business, lifestyle, personal grooming, and finance content, but we also cover news. So our websites cover news content. And that has been the biggest driver of our growth on the digital side, where we see sort of growth, traffic growth of 20 to 30% and revenue growth of 20 to 25% per annum. And I think it's because if I look at more South Africa, the media and the opinion shapers are white, male-owned predominantly, with a very strong legacy to the past or a very strong link to the past. And we're one of the few companies that are black, female-owned, and are therefore packaging and communicating news without that legacy. And I think... Thank you. And without some of those sometimes subliminal influences that can manifest depending on one's history, one's opinions, and where one wants the continent to go. So I would say that's probably the political element that's there. And I think it's important for there to be a diversity of ownership and a diversity of voice, particularly in political and news content. I think that especially as everyone with social media is a producer of content, anyone with a great blog or anyone with a great Instagram account or anyone with a great Twitter account is a producer of content, and people follow you because of that. But I don't think content is king anymore. I think content has become a commodity, but voice is king. An opinion and a way of looking at the world, synthesizing all that information, that is king and that is key, and that's it's quite important that there's a diversity of people doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.